dudes and dudettes. So yes, USC did get the victory last weekend against Fresno State, barely, but they lost their starting quarterback JT Daniels late in the second quarter. So the freshman quarterback Keaton Slovis had to come in for the rest of the game. He only threw 8 passes, basically only had one really gigantic play of the 50 some odd yards he threw for, but USC was running the ball so well. Both guys were over 100 yards, and basically that's where they got most of their touchdowns from, and a touchdown in the return game. But sadly, even though the X-rays and MRI were all negative and stuff the night before, the next day they found out that JT Daniels tore his ACL, so he will be out for the full entire year, which does suck, especially now that USC has to put their season in the fate of a freaking freshman. And they had said, well, how come Jack Sears, the ex-quarterback that I mentioned last time, was transferring? Why doesn't he come back if he hasn't chosen school yet? But it is obvious that even the reason why he was transferring was because he was 4th on the depth chart. He wasn't even in 3rd place. So it's kind of like, okay, he's going to be there, but it's not really going to be a difference. It's not like he was going to play right away. But off of that story, I'll talk more about that later. But the Chargers did allow Melvin Gordon to seek a trade finally, just because they were unable to find a successful partner to trade with on their own. And reportedly, there were some things going out there that the Philadelphia Eagles were interested, and they were looking to swap him out for another running back in Jordan Howard that the Eagles have, and swapping picks later in the draft. But Chargers are looking for a 1st round and a 5th round pick at least, and they probably don't even care about players, but they're looking to at least get those high of draft picks. And as of right now, that doesn't seem to be true, that trade, so it hasn't happened. So just gonna have to wait and see on that front. He's still not available for week 1, as we know, against the Colts. Then also, the Team USA basketball barely got away with the win in overtime against Turkey, which is a pretty good, solid team with a lot of NBA players. But then they did beat up on the Czech Republic, which is pretty good. I know they have a few games coming up here and there, so we'll see how they do. But yeah, cutting it pretty close with a lot of the guys, and having a couple injuries here and there as well. But I don't know, we'll see how well they do this tournament. USC got another commitment from another offensive tackle over the weekend for Caden Stephen. He's out of the Washington area. He's another 3-star guy, but it's another guy they believe that can do well. They only got 2 guys last year as far as offensive linemen, so they're looking to pile up on guys this year. I'm just surprised they're not more highly ranked and nationally ranked. A lot of 3-star guys, but hopefully they can turn out to bump up their scores and become 4 stars or even better players. So we'll just wait and see if that develops or not. Then one of the bright spots for a freshman, at least for USC during the game, was Drake Jackson, the defensive end out of Centennial, which is near my hometown, which is pretty cool. Did pretty well. I think they're pretty upset at themselves that they let the quarterback rush for so many yards, and there's a lot of missed opportunities in that game. But at least they're overall, I'm pretty sure they're happy with the win. Had an interception to seal that game. And yeah, just typical USC. When it came close, it was just too much to bear when they really should have been up by, at least won the game by 2 or 3 scores, in my opinion. But yes, we'll move on. We'll try to move on from that. But a player that was missing from the game was McLean, the outside linebacker freshman. He had knee surgery, so he's going to be out for several weeks, which kind of sucks because you need more depth at that position. But hopefully he gets healthy soon, and we'll hopefully can use him later in the season. Then also a bit of USC NFL news. So both Marvell Tell and Cameron Smith, two rookies going in there right now, made the cuts for their teams, which is good. But Porter Gustin, who did sign as an undrafted free agent with the Saints, was let go, which sucks. No word if he signed with another team yet, but at least two of those guys were safe for the moment, which is okay. Then Ben Griffiths, the punter for USC, was added to one of the watch lists for the top punter in all of college football, which is really cool. So hopefully we won't have to punt that much, but when he does, he will be effective. Then they had Juju Smith on the cover of Sports Illustrated, being the new millennial type of football player that I guess is what's going to take over the NFL now. But I mean, yeah, he does everything. He's on YouTube, he plays the Fortnite video games, he does a lot of social media stuff. He wants to do good for fantasy-wise, but also his career-wise. At least he's healthy for the most part his first couple years, and yeah, we'll see how he does. Definitely rooting for him. Should have been on the Chargers, but of course they never listened to me. But speaking of Juju Smith, he's one of 34 players that are at least on NFL rosters at the moment. At the beginning of the season this week, the other night, that game was pretty bad last night for the Bears and the Packers. I mean, it was just tough to watch. I mean, I don't even think it was really good defense. It was just a lot of poor offense altogether. Surprised that even Green Bay got the W. Another guy, Blake Martinez, their linebacker, who, of course, I said one of the Chargers, and of course he's one of their top players. It's just horrible. But yeah, it was a crappy game, but hopefully this weekend will be a lot better, especially fantasy football-wise, but I'll get to that a little bit later. Then they're saying that this is a defining stretch in Clay Helton's football career. It definitely is, because he is going up against a lot of tough teams, and he doesn't have the starting quarterback. Even Stanford doesn't have their starting quarterback going into the game tomorrow. It's pretty insane. It's the battle of the backups, but we'll see who comes out victorious. That was one game that I said USC could get a W in, and it's just the rest of the stretch after that, which is going to be tough, but we'll see how he weathers it, and maybe he can save his job. Off this video with some Chargers news, which kind of seems like how I always end up having only USC and Chargers news, but that's really just the main topics going on right now that are at least worthy about talking about. That's why these videos are so spaced out. But yes, Chargers news. Let's get into that crap. So a little bit of positive stuff. So Mike Pouncey, the center, he signed a 1-year extension on his contract, so he'll be on after this season, which is good. Says it wasn't about the money, even though it is a $9 million contract, but it is pretty crazy how he could have gotten more and has decided to stay with the Chargers, which usually doesn't happen, but he obviously believes in them and thinks it's a great place to be, which is really cool, so I'm happy about that. He's a very good player, so I'm glad he's on the team. And sadly, one of my most frustrating talked about players, quarterback Cardale Jones of the Chargers, was finally released when they cut down to the 53-man roster. Obviously, I was kind of happy they decided to go with the rookie. I think he's probably cheaper, that's why they did that, but also he has a little bit more upside, and Cardale is going to kind of just stay where he's at. It's not like he's going to get any better. But another guy I was kind of happy that did at least make the practice squad, which is not the first team, but it's an extra team you have. You're still on a contract where it was Chris Brown, the guard out of USC, which I'm happy about. I think he's a diamond in the rough, and they obviously see something in him. So hopefully he can make the team at some point in his career. Then we have the Chargers getting a final win on their preseason against the 49ers, even though it was tough. It was only their first win the whole preseason. Sorry, Mom, but yeah, they got the W, and hopefully they'll be a lot better when a lot of their guys are playing this weekend against the Colts. That's what I'm hoping for, especially since Andrew Luck is out. That's what I'm just hoping. That's a lot more positivity for them and easier to score. Then we also have news about Nasir Adderley, the free safety I've been pretty high on, that I wanted the Chargers to draft higher than what they did. But to me, he's been more impressive in his first 2 games in the preseason than Tillery has been their first round pick. He's only had a sack pretty much from what I've seen. But Adderley did have a lot of tackles and an interception in that final game. Had some pretty good return skills as well, which he displayed at Delaware. But maybe he can be a backup punt returner. You never know. I'm glad at least they picked him up at some point, even though he is injury prone at some times. But moving on, we did have the asking team captains. Sorry, for the Chargers. A lot of veterans: Phillip Rivers, Mike Pouncey mentioned earlier, Melvin Ingram. Also have Thomas Davis and Brandon Mebane. 5 guys, basically the oldest guys. So hopefully they can show them what's up and get them going a little bit. Then we also have the asking price for Melvin Gordon. Just seems too high for what the Chargers want, and is really in a no-win situation, because even if he doesn't play, he has to come back by week 10, unless if he wants to be a free agent. If he doesn't, then the Chargers still have his rights for another year. So either way, he's going to either play for the Chargers or he's going to play for somebody this season. Hopefully it's the Chargers, and if not, hopefully they can get something back in return for him. And they're even saying that the Chargers don't even need him. They could win the AFC West without him. I don't think so. I think you need a little bit more help, and Gordon will give you that. They need even more help than him, but it's not like they're going to make a big trade at some point this season. Then also, I finally did a fantasy football draft. They gave me a D+. It's pretty obvious they always give me low grades, but I end up finishing in the top 3 usually, so I don't care what they say. My team is still stacked. But thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what y'all think, and have a great rest of your day.